right, let's move on to some of the pure buyer or potential buyers, I should say, teams that I think could use a little bit of help. I want to start with the Baltimore Ravens because everything about this team to me just seems like a group that could use a little bit extra. Like they're clearly good. I know they just lost the head scratcher to Pittsburgh, but I feel good about the Ravens overall, but could use a little bit more. They did a lot to add to their receiver core over the offseason. It hasn't worked out as beautifully as they'd probably prefer. They had 7 drops on Sunday.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Really nasty work. And then you look at it and say, Odell Beckham's dealt with injuries.
Which I think we all saw.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Don't be mean to Odell. He went to LSU. I'm not being mean.
I know that he's your LSU guy, but I mean, that's why I don't think I was as excited when they ended up signing Odell Beckham, because I was like, okay, we need to make sure that he can get through the season, and he hasn't been able to do that yet. So he's played, what, 3 games for them?
3 games. Odell and Rashad Bateman both have less than 100 receiving yards.
After 5 games.
That's after 5 games.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure the Ravens probably say, well, what else do you want us to do? We got Odell, we got Rashad Bateman, we got Nelson Aguilar. At some point, you'd probably prefer one of those guys to step up. But if it hasn't happened in another week or two, I'm not saying you got to go after a star player, but I mean, we just saw Van Jefferson get dealt to Atlanta. I mean, there's all sorts of levels of guys that can help you.
Right.
If this continues, I would like to maybe see something happen there. Another thing is the Ravens pass rush. They're pretty good in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
They have 18 sacks on the year. They've got a good win rate when it comes to rushing the passer. But the interesting thing is 9 of their sacks, half of their production is coming from safeties, linebackers, Kyle Hamilton, Patrick Queen.
Really complex and really fun, creative defensive scheme.
And Mike McDonald is a hell of a defensive coordinator. But I bet he'd be a lot happier with like a true edge guy.
Yeah, you don't do that unless you have to. And like you don't bring in nickels and corners and safeties on blitzes unless you have to, because you don't got the guys up front.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. I don't know if it would be a blockbuster. They just traded for Roquan Smith a year ago. I don't know that they do that 2 years in a row. But again, there's levels to this thing. Maybe a mid-round pick could get you a veteran pass rusher. We'll get to that in a little bit. I want to mention the Cleveland Browns, mainly because they have the defense that can make them a competitor and a contender. We've seen it. The offense is shaky. We know Deshaun Watson's dealing with an injury, but also the offensive line is very troubling. Yeah. Right tackle Jack Conklin out for the year. Left tackle Jedrick Wills not having a wonderful season. So really, I would imagine the Browns have done what they're going to do at running back, bringing Kareem Hunt back. But if you could beef up the offensive line a little bit, maybe you would feel better about what you're getting out of that offense.
Yeah. I mean, everything starts up front, right? I think we're seeing a lot of that this year in particular, of how much these offensive lines matter, which I love personally. But I mean, it also makes it. I am a Trench fan. But at the same time, it's not like a lot of these offensive line trades happen in the middle of a season, just because it's hard to bring a guy in the middle of the season and have him be an impact player at that position. So you're between a rock and a hard place when you need some offensive line help in the middle of a season.
That is really true. I think the Eagles belong on this list every single year. As long as Howie Roseman is doing this, the general manager in Philly, they're worth mentioning. He is always down to do a trade. I know they're 5-0, but that's never stopped him from being aggressive.
They're also not afraid. I mean, if the trade deadline comes and goes without the Eagles doing something, they're not afraid to sign some guys off the street, because Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, those guys come to mind, and those guys didn't sign until like mid to end of November last year. And it was just because they recognized a need, and they're like, hey, these guys are sitting there waiting for a shot at a contender. We're a contender. Let's do this thing.
There are needs on this team. And I know they're 5-0. They're very good, but I think Eagles fans would even say the secondary is an issue.
Yeah.
If they could get a safety,
they're not alone in that.
I mean, fair, but if the Eagles could get themselves a safety, I bet they'd be thrilled about it. Losing nickelback Avonte Maddox early in the year, I know they're missing him. I bet they wouldn't be mad about that. And even linebacker, like literally, I think the defensive line is probably fine.
Right. You think?
I don't think they need Ndamukong Suh or Linval Joseph this year with Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter.
But literally anything in the back seven, I think the Eagles would probably not hesitate to do it if it came up. So always keep an eye on Howie Roseman. The Buffalo Bills, I think it's a lot of the same talking points. The Bills have lost Pro Bowl caliber players 2 weeks in a row. Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano both go down.
Taquan Jones too in London.
That's a good point.
I was very unhappy for the Bills to see that happen, because you go overseas, you make all of these arrangements, and it's a really hectic. I've done the up and back to London. You think you've done the up and back to London. It's not a fun trip, and to lose two of your guys on that trip is just it's awful.
I do think the Bills at least have in-house candidates to replace Matt Milano.
Yeah.
Terrell Bernard's had a nice season.
But I do think just the sheer amount of injuries have forced their hand into having to do something.
No, for sure. For sure. And that's why I have them here. I think if you think you've got a chance to go for it and somebody's available, I think it's worth mentioning. The Detroit Lions, I'm starting to sense a theme.
Oh, yeah.
And that's people are banged up in the secondary.
Yeah.
The Lions have lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson this year. Emmanuel Mosley's out.
Felt horribly for him.
Brian Branch is dealing with things.
Yeah.
Kirby Joseph is dealing with things.
He's currently on the injury report.
Not all of these guys are out for the season, correct?
No. So Brian Branch is still playing. He's just kind of good to come out every so often in a game because he gets banged up because of how physical he plays, which you love that about him. Kirby Joseph has missed the last couple of games for the Lions, but CJ Gardner-Johnson, we don't know how long he's going to be out. Still don't know how long he's going to be out. It's an indefinite timetable. Emmanuel Mosley, unfortunately, it was his first game back this last Sunday from an ACL injury, and just a few snaps into the game, he tears his other ACL. So that was just a heart-wrenching injury, especially for the guys in that building. I've talked to a lot of the coaches and stuff in that building that were really hopeful for what Emmanuel Mosley could bring to this defense. And we're so excited about him. And he's just apparently a really good dude. And you hate to see that happen to somebody. So they've gotten decimated at that back level of the defense. And I think that they absolutely have to do something about it because the defensive depth is not there. They have 3 healthy corners and a undrafted rookie.
Last time I checked, you won about 6.
Yeah, you want more than that. I can tell you that much. You want more than 3. You're using safeties at your nickel position, which is just a way to do it these days. I feel like there's more and more defenses that are putting safeties down in that slot kind of corner position. Not quite a corner, obviously they're safeties, but there's no depth now. And that was somewhere where they were coming into the season. They had addressed the defensive backfield because that's what held them back last year. So they really made sure to pay special attention to that unit in particular. And now the injuries have just really gotten the better of you.
Another thing worth mentioning, what helps a secondary is good pass rush.
And they have an alien up front in Aiden Hutchinson.
They do. And that's a nice place to be. Let's start mounting the campaign for Aiden Hutchinson to be in the DPOY.
In the DPOY conversation, the Defensive Player of the Year, absolutely.
But before we do that, what I was going to point out is, they got a game and a half out of James Houston.
Yeah.
Day 3 draft steal last year.
No, he came in.
You're kind of hoping that he is going to be the guy that offsets Aiden Hutchinson. If he's getting doubled, then he's going to win.
Right.
Doesn't work out when you get hurt. That sucks for James Houston. But
yeah, he didn't start James Houston did not start till week 12 of last year, and he finished second on the team in sacks, 1 behind Aiden Hutchinson, which is incredible.
Aiden Hutchinson is badass, but I wonder if you try to do something to bolster the rest of that pass rush so Aiden doesn't have to always
be the guy. Although he's proved that he can literally do anything and everything.
Not worried about him.
One-handed interception.
Not worried about him. I'm just saying everybody likes a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Let's round this thing out with a team that you know well. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No way in my wildest dreams did I think we'd be talking about them as a buyer going into the year. I think I was higher on the Bucs than a lot of people.
Was that because you know me and I was a lot higher on the Buccaneers?
Look, you know your stuff, but all you have to do is look at the Bucs defensive depth chart and be like, oh, these are all the same guys as when they were the best defense in the league and won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Either way, even as did you expect them to be the best team in the division and looking like a team that might want help at the trade deadline? Be honest. You did?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then what do you think they need then, expert?
Actually, the same kind of theme that we've got here. I think they could use some secondary help. More than that, though, running back. And it's one of those chicken or the egg situations. Like, are they not running the ball because it's not in the scheme? Or is it not in the scheme because they don't have the personnel to do it? They have Rashad White, who's my baby boy, Sun Devil.
Arizona
State. Shout out ASU. But behind him, they have Keyshawn Vaughn, who has not panned out to be the guy that they hoped. And they have Sean Tucker, who's the rookie, but you're just not getting production out of that phase of the offense. I mean, you have Baker throwing for 35 to 45 times a game at this point, maybe even higher. I think actually last game he threw like 47 times. And that's kind of always been the calling card of the Bucs, even dating back to the Arians years. But I don't think that that's been by choice. So I would love to see them pick up a running back. I think there might be some running backs available. It's just a matter of assets and what the Bucs can afford to give up.
He's been averaging more than 30 attempts per game all season long. Not quite 47, but like I see your point. Like, yeah. I think you're asking a lot of him, especially it seems like they really like play action.
They do.
When the running game hasn't been working. You think if a Leonard Fournette reunion was going to happen, it probably would have happened by now?
It would have happened already.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It would have happened.
I'm curious.
I love my guy Lenny, though.
What does a running back trade look like in this market? We can get into that. That takes us through, I think, at least teams to know in terms of looking to get rid of talent, looking to acquire it.